Surrounded by tall trees, uneven hills, and the dense swamps of central Bohemia in the Czech Republic, stands a structure cloaked in mystery, surrounded by somber whispers of the occult, completely unexplained phenomena, and a dark history that no local ever wants to be shared. Until now. This is Houska Castle, a place where history and horror blur together, where strange occurrences happen and have petrified curious minds for centuries. It is one of the best preserved Gothic castles in the world. Don't be fooled by the word castle though. This is not just any castle. Most medieval castles were built to keep enemies out, but not this one. Houska was built to keep something in, something they are just too scared to let out. All the fortifications were originally built facing in, the arrow slits all pointed inwards, the gateways were facing the opposite ways, and the whole setup seems inconsistent to conventional castles. Even the main building has no stairways leading to the courtyard. No quick escape. Today we're going to uncover its chilling past, the disturbing stories that surround it, and explore why this seemingly innocuous building has become a breeding ground for some of the most bizarre conspiracy theories in history. And if you've been paying attention recently, conspiracy theories, more often than not, come true. Grab a flashlight and let's descend into one of the darkest mysteries ever to be unearthed. To understand the strange mysteries that surround Houska Castle, we first need to go back in time to when it was originally built. The castle as they know it now was constructed in the late 13th century, but unlike other castles built for defence or royal grandeur, Houska Castle's purpose has always been debated. What was it truly built for? Unlike many other fortresses, Houska does not sit on a strategic hilltop, nor does it overlook a river or a valley. Instead, it was built on a flat plain, although on a cliff's edge, an odd choice for a defensive stronghold. It couldn't have been for nobility either, as there was no fresh water leading up there. It was built without a kitchen, and it was not on any kind of trade route or visiting thoroughfare. And the structure itself was surprisingly simple and tied into the limestone walls of the cliff. There was, however, one particular feature that stood out. The castle was built on a very deep, mysterious hole in the ground, a dark, yawning, bottomless pit. This hole, now located beneath the castle's chapel, is not just any ordinary pit. It was believed to be a gateway to hell itself, a portal that opened into a fathomless abyss. And it was this very pit that many of the legends surrounding the castle began to revolve around. According to local legends and records, the pit was not merely a geological anomaly that was first discovered in the year 800, but a gateway to something far more sinister. The story goes that the construction of the castle was, in part, an effort to seal the pit, an attempt to contain the horrors that lurked below. A couple of centuries before construction began, a duke from the Double clan was made aware of a strange hole or a crevice that had mysteriously appeared in the limestone floor upon the cliff. The local rumours had spread about horrific monsters and demonic creatures that had started to emerge from the hole and attack the villages around the area. Gruesome mutants, part human, part animal, with deep dark eyes and black leathery skin, would crawl out of the pit and terrorise the villages. Others witnessed flying banshees hovering over the hole, screaming and hollering. A group of brave villagers were intrigued by the sudden appearance of the hole and the stories. They visited the pit and began throwing rocks and old tree branches in, but to their amazement, they could never hear the rocks hit the bottom. But what some of them did hear was distant screams, blood-curdling screams that echoed off the pit walls. On hearing these stories, the Duke of the region came up with a plan. He gathered a small group of prisoners, some arsonists, some murderers, and some thieves, and offered them an ultimatum: the gallows or enter the pit. And once at the bottom, come back up and simply say what they saw. In return, they would be pardoned and released. Some of the baffled prisoners jumped at the chance of easy freedom. The Duke and his soldiers took these prisoners to the location. Tied to a long rope, a middle-aged man of strong stature volunteered first. a group of soldiers slowly and tentatively lowered him. After just a few feet, the man entered past the darkness. Although no one could see him, all seemed well at first as the soldiers lowered him inch by inch. All was silent. After a couple of minutes and several feet of rope, the Duke and his entourage were suddenly shaken by a terrifying scream from the pit. They quickly pulled the prisoner back to the surface. He looked horror-struck and was sobbing uncontrollably. The Duke pushed the prisoner to the ground, and a younger, more athletic convict stepped forward. They tied the same rope to the youngster and lowered him down. He was confident and once again passed the darkness. This time they lowered him faster, and he descended further than the first prisoner. And then, abruptly, and to the astonishment of the soldiers holding the rope, it went slack. No noise, just a slackened rope. Then just as suddenly it went tight again, and the same, if not louder, blood-curdling scream came from the hole. Once again they quickly raised the prisoner from the cavern. This time, they, including the Duke, were in complete shock. After just a few minutes of entering the pit, the young, fit man surfaced, crawling out. He not only looked absolutely petrified, but had aged. His long brown hair had turned white, wrinkles covered his face, and his teeth had gone rotten. All in attendance were in shock and trembling. After that, they quickly decided to call it a day. The once young prisoner was taken back to the jail with the rest of the troop, but died 2 days later. They say he died of fright. And the other prisoners became insane, along with some of the soldiers. The Duke decided not to build there, and another 400 years passed. Over these 400 years, the same stories emerged from the villages. Rumours began circulating about strange occurrences around the pit. Local peasants reported that animals and even people had disappeared into the hole, and the most horrifying accounts suggest that anyone who looked into the pit would lose their sanity, lose their mind, and be subjected to medieval treatments on returning home. Not nice. Eventually, the construction of the castle was started. The story goes that the construction of the castle was, in part, an effort to seal the pit, an attempt to contain the horrors that lurked below, a containment for something so evil, so unworldly, that only a Gothic medieval castle could hide. The castle's chapel was built over the sealed pit in an attempt to stop the demons from coming out. I've said it before and I'll keep saying it, but how did they manage to build something so grand, so enigmatic, in such a location back in the 1200s? How did they manage to avoid the swampland? How did they carry such heavy objects to the top of a steep cliff? But that's not the real reason why we're here, apart from the why. The castle boasts paintings on its walls. These include Archangel Michael, who is said to have battled Satan himself. And on the opposite wall is a fresco of a half lion, half woman. She has a bow pulled back, aiming an arrow at a villager with her left hand. Back then in paganism, being left-handed was a sign of evil, a mark of the devil himself. But we won't go there. In the late 16th century, another 400 years after its build, one brave monk dismissed these claims and stood in the chapel at the pit's edge, now covered by a large slab, to prove to his fellow monks that it was all a myth and that God would end these ridiculous tales. It is reported that after just a few minutes his face contorted, his dribbling mouth dropped, and after letting off a gut-wrenching scream, he collapsed and perished. Looking at the dead body laying there with a face etched with pure terror, the other monks ran and never came back to Houska Castle. It was said that the castle's builders were unaware of the pit's supernatural nature until a group of masons, no, not the type you're thinking of, not yet anyway, were tasked with renovating the chapel's walls. One day, one of the renovators was working alone. He heard scratching from the walls and from the pit. He put it down to rats, but then he heard faint whispering coming from within the walls. It wasn't a language he had ever heard. It was a kind of gibberish, a kind of religious chant. All of a sudden, the pit blasted out a shocking yell. Just like the monks, the man fled and never returned. The renovation carried on, but without him, and nothing else strange was reported, for a while at least. Now, there are a number of theories why Houska Castle was built in the first place. Some historians believe it was simply a fortification for the ruling families of the region, yet the castle has no luxuries or noble grandeur. Some theorists suggest that the pit was an ancient supernatural anomaly, perhaps even the remnants of a pre-Christian site dedicated to dark rituals. They speculate that the castle was built not to protect people from invaders, but to trap something malevolent that resided beneath the ground. Is this what the monks saw or picked up on? Did one of the renovators experience this? The idea that Houska Castle was built to trap an ancient evil has been a popular topic amongst occultists and paranormal investigators. According to some, the monks and soldiers who constructed the castle were fully aware of the power of the pit. They were not building a castle, but a prison, a fortress designed to keep something far worse contained beneath. Over the centuries, rumours of strange rituals at Houska Castle have persisted. Some believe that the castle was a site for occult ceremonies, invoking dark powers to seal the gateway, even to this very day. The connection to the occult has fueled speculation, with some even suggesting that the castle was constructed by a secret society dedicated to dark arts, Masons perhaps, and yes, this time it is the ones you're thinking of. Could Houska Castle have been the site of ancient rituals meant to harness dark energies? Is the place built on top of a gateway to the underworld, a pit leading to hell itself? In the 20th century, during the rise of occult movements, there were claims that the castle was home to secretive groups of mystics, magicians, and even the Illuminati, people who sought to tap into the otherworldly powers of the pit. But the most disturbing connection of all is with Nazi Germany. During World War II, the Nazis took an interest in Houska Castle and its alleged supernatural properties. The idea that Nazis were obsessed with occult knowledge is not new. Hitler and many high-ranking officers were deeply involved in esoteric beliefs, and it's said that the Nazis sought out places of dark power for their twisted rituals. Himmler, Hitler's right-hand man, was heavily into the occult, much more than Hitler himself. During the early 40s, the Germans seized and occupied Houska Castle, and it was the site of Nazi occult practices, and the regime was interested in harnessing the supernatural forces of the pit. Could this dark history have played a role in the horrors that were said to manifest in the castle during the war? The most chilling aspect of this is the suggestion that the Nazis were just interested in the supernatural for spiritual reasons. They were after a power that could change the course of history itself. They thought the pit held answers to winning the war. Instead of guns and tanks, etc., perhaps they could harness the evil within the pit and use it to their advantage. That was their beliefs anyhow. They say that it was a place for experiments, the types of experiments carried out by Himmler and his crew on creating a perfect Aryan race. Captured folk were often taken there, and who knows what horrid events bestowed them, I dread to think. Himmler took some of his trusted officers and soldiers to Houska Castle, and they frequently conducted occult rituals in the chapel. This included sacrifices. The soldiers were already victims of mind control or brainwashing. They had been conditioned to ignore suffering and other bad stuff. They were often known to scar themselves so they would look more menacing, more evil. It is thought that part of the Lebensborn program was conducted here, the program that promoted racial purity and healthy Aryan births. Also, a collection of thousands of books on witchcraft and demonic rituals were hidden in the castle on Himmler's request and demands. The castle was off limits to everyone, apart from SS officers or soldiers who were ordered there. He ordered some of the officers to investigate the pit. Once again, just like in medieval times, officers that were tasked with investigating this pit were driven insane. And we all know what Hitler and his cronies did with the insane. After the war had ended, several bodies of German soldiers were found in the grounds of the castle. No, not shot by the enemy, as there was never any battles in or near Houska. I'll leave you to imagine how or why their bodies were there. Today, Houska Castle continues to be a subject of fascination for paranormal investigators and historians alike. Visitors and experts have reported strange occurrences within the castle walls. Eerie sounds, shadowy figures, and an overwhelming sense of dread fill the castle's interiors. Some claim that they've heard disembodied voices calling out from the depths of the pit, or witnessed strange lights flickering in the windows at night. Others believe that the souls of those who met their tragic fate in the castle still haunt its halls, unable to escape the sinister forces that were unleashed there. Investigators who stay the night don't, if you know what I mean. They can't muster the courage to stay there more than a few hours. As soon as the sun hides and the darkness falls, the castle comes to life, literally. One paranormal investigator, whilst conducting tests with 3 of his colleagues, experienced burning to the top of his chest. When he took off his shirt, 2 painful burn blisters appeared. Of course, they left. Now, it's the norm and common to see a headless man at supernatural places like this, but at Houska Castle, numerous reports of a headless horse have been spotted, roaming a small clearing with blood gushing from its gaping wound. Also, a line of black-robed convicts stroll the lands, chained together, no faces, just blackened space in their hoods. Grotesque snarling dogs tug at their ankles, sometimes pulling off chunks of flesh. There are even sightings from tourists, several in fact, and get this, a half-man, half-bullfrog lurking in the castle grounds. What the? One of the most frequent sightings, and probably one of the most disturbing, is that of the White Lady. The White Lady of Houska Castle is one of the most famous and eerie legends associated with the castle. The White Lady is a ghostly apparition that haunts the castle, and her story is tied to tragic love and death, with a strong association with the supernatural. Some say she has beauty beyond belief, yet others say she is disfigured and hideous. According to legend, this White Lady was a woman of noble birth, though her name and specific identity vary depending on the version of the story. One of the most popular renditions is that she was a young woman who was either imprisoned or forced to live at Houska Castle against her will, often believed to be the daughter of a local noble or the mistress of a high-ranking figure. She is said to have been deeply in love with a man who was either forbidden to be with her due to societal constraints or was tragically lost to war. In one version of the legend, the White Lady was engaged to a knight, but before they could marry, he was killed in battle, leaving her heartbroken. Consumed by grief and despair, the lady reportedly died of a broken heart whilst praying in the chapel, and her spirit became trapped within the walls of the castle. She appears in the form of a pale, ghostly figure dressed in a long white silk gown, wandering the halls of the castle, particularly around the chapel and the areas near the pit, which adds to the eerie atmosphere surrounding the site. Over the centuries, there have been numerous reported sightings of the White Lady at Houska Castle, including tourists. Those who have claimed to witness her describe seeing a faint glowing figure in the distance, often drifting through the castle corridors or appearing suddenly in the chapel area. Some say her presence is accompanied by a chilling cold or an overwhelming sense of sadness and dread. Many visitors to the castle report feeling a heavy, oppressive atmosphere around certain parts of the structure. Others claim to have heard faint whispers or soft weeping sounds echoing through the halls, believed to be the mournful cries of a lost soul who cannot find peace. One paranormal investigator insisted that while he sat on a stool arranging his paranormal equipment in a darkened room, he heard the whisper of a lady in his ear. It made him bolt upright. Another investigator stood near him, laughed at his experience until the same voice whispered angrily in his ear also. The two were so frightened by this that they packed up and left, stating that they would never visit Houska Castle again. The White Lady still haunts Houska to this day. In 1836, a Czech poet visited and stopped over for a night at Houska. He had a dream. He dreamt that he was being dragged through the castle hallways into the cellar, which is now called Satan's office, and then into the chapel and thrown down the pit. When hitting the bottom, he found he was in the year 2006. He had visions of small holes in a large cliff wall with dimly lit lights in every one of them. Some say now that that was a vision of the tenement flats that now line the main street of Prague. So if you reach the bottom of the hole of hell, it is a window to the future. The poet was scared and never stayed another night. He died 3 months later of pneumonia. More recently, a psychic from Finland visited. She claims that a dark force was trying to stop her entering the castle. As she was tentatively approaching the entrance, the force spun her around. She looked down to see that she was now dressed in an old-fashioned off-white robe down to her ankles. She also noticed that a belt, not a buckled belt but a fabric belt, was tied around her waist. It had embroidered red flowers on it. The force spun her around again, and this time, when she looked down, she was naked. She chose never to enter the castle and went away. Although the pit has been covered, not filled but covered, and the castle stands around it for protection, now that the hollowed-eyed creatures with black leather skin cannot crawl out or fly out of the pit, is that it? I think not. I think it still resonates with evil, and while there's evil in the world, none of us are safe, even if you want to dismiss it. So, what is the truth behind Houska Castle? Was it a place built to imprison something far darker than we could ever imagine? Is it just a strange anomaly in history, forever haunted by its own mysterious past and legend? Is it a place where the line between reality and the supernatural blurs? Did medieval Europe know far more than we know about the supernatural and what to do to combat it? Or is this all simply BS stories, over-exaggerated to please the historians and the tourists? You be the judge. Thanks again for watching. The mysteries of Houska Castle continue to haunt those who dare to explore its shadowy halls. Not this one though. No thank you. I think there are devilish secrets that are best left undisturbed.
Paul, where's my left-handed umbrella? Have you hid it again?
Be good. See you in the next video. Bye for now.